Welcome to Inside Azure AI Foundry, where we put the latest models and tools to the test. I'm April, your host for this episode, and today we're diving into Mistral Document AI. It's a multimodal OCR model that combines both vision and language understanding to interpret documents and provide structured outputs that reflect the original layout of a document. For those unfamiliar, OCR, or optical character recognition, is a technology that converts images of text, like a scanned document or a photo of a receipt, into editable, shareable digital text. With AI-powered OCR models, the model doesn't just detect characters. It learns patterns in fonts, handwriting, and layouts, making it far more accurate and flexible than traditional OCR. It understands both text and visuals and outputs clean, structured data like JSON that can flow straight into databases, agents, and RAG workflows. But enough about the model, let's go see it in action. All right, so we're going to start here in the model catalog. Now, because Mistral Document AI was recently announced, I do have it here within the announcement section. However, if by the time you look at this, it's not there, you can scroll down to the search bar as always and search for it there. Because I do have it at the top, I'm going to go ahead and click Checkout Model. I'm now in the model card for Mistral Document AI, and this is where you can learn more about the model itself. I suggest taking a look through here if you're curious to know more about the language supported, data input supported as well, and then just general information about the model itself. Because I already have the model deployed, your screen is going to look a little different. But at the top, you will see a button here to use this model or try this model. You'll select that and that'll begin the deployment itself. Assuming your model's been deployed, we can now go look at the deployment information. You can access that by going to My Assets and then Models and Endpoints. Once in here, you'll see the model. You can select it. This page is going to be super helpful when it's time to work with the model. Within the endpoint section is where we can find the key for the model itself. And then just below, we have some deployment information as well. We're going to be spending a majority of our time over on the right-hand side within the Get Started section. First up, we have information on how to authenticate using an API key. And then below, we have some examples for running different code samples. So either for doing Document AI with a base64 PDF, or if you want to do with a base64 image. And then we also have a bounding box annotation, followed by a document annotation. For this video, I'm going to be focusing on the base64 PDF. So what are we going to use Mistral Document AI to create? Well, when I read that the model could be used for document digitization, my mind instantly went into preserving family recipes. So I thought it'd be cool to take some of my family recipes and digitize them for a recipe management system. Let me show you how it was created. Here in VS Code, I'll take you through the very first script that I created. So this script is going to take a local PDF file and then it's going to send it to Mistral Document AI to extract structured text context, specifically for recipe processing, but you could use it as a starting point for whatever you're building. We're going to kick things off with this encode PDF to base64 function. The Mistral API requires PDFs to be sent as base64 encoded strings. Therefore, this function is going to read our local PDF file and then convert it to a base64 string. I've also included some error handling, and so it's going to catch any file that's not found, as well as any other read errors. And in case you're wondering, here's that PDF file that I'm going to pass into it. It's a herb roasted chicken recipe that I've turned into a PDF. And aside from the ingredients, we have the cooking instructions on here, and then we also have some additional options as well. Moving on, we have this process PDF with Mistral function. There's a couple things happening here. To kick things off, first we need to authenticate and get the file information. Getting the file information itself is optional, but I included it here for the sake of this demo. In any case, first, I'm going to get the API key from my environment variables, which I have stored in a .env file. I also included here the file size information, and again, this is just for demo purposes, so you don't have to include this. Next, we then need to prepare the PDF. So this entails calling that encode PDF to base64 function that's going to convert the PDF. And then I'm going to print out the status message as well, just so we can have an idea of what's going on. Once we've completed that, The next thing that we need to do is the actual API call. And so we did the API call setup here, and this is where the code from Foundry comes into play. And in case you're curious as to what I'm talking about, or as a reminder, here's that code from Foundry. And then next, we're going to do the API request. So we're going to send the post request to Mistral. I've included some times here for the processing just for demo's sake, and then we're going to handle the HTTP errors very gracefully. And finally, I have some response processing happening here. So we're going to return the structured JSON with the extracted content, and then we're going to show those processing statistics that I mentioned earlier. So that's going to include the pages, the file size, as well as the time. So let's go ahead and run this for that herb roasted chicken recipe that I mentioned earlier. All right, expand this. All right, that was relatively quick. Let's see what we have here. So again, for demo's sakes, I've included a lot of information here, but your output doesn't have to be structured this way. But to give you an idea of what's going on in terms of this output, here are those stats I mentioned. What we really want to see is this raw extraction that's been saved to document AI result. So I'm going to go open that up. And here we have that raw extraction. And I can scroll over, as you can see. We got a lot of good information here, but it did extract what we have in that PDF document for this recipe. So this output doesn't really mean much until we do something with it. And so I have this additional script that I have here. So this file is going to take that raw document AI output, and then it's going to transform it into actionable structured data. It takes that JSON output that I just shared, and then it applies smart parsing to extract the useful recipe components for cooking and meal planning. We'll kick things off with that load document AI result function, which is going to load the results that I just shared on the screen. And then down below, we have the extract recipe components function. Let me bring that more into view for you. So there's a lot of extraction that's happening here within this extract recipe components function. I'll take you through how I set this up. As a reminder, the input that it's taking is that raw markdown text from the results that I shared earlier. Starting off with extracting the title, we're going to use a regular expression, and it's going to look for any markdown headers. Next, we're going to extract the ingredients. It's going to find any instance of the # ingredients section, and then it's going to parse the bullet points. Moving down, we now need to extract the instructions. And so it's going to locate the instruction section and then split on any numbered steps. And then finally, we're going to count the components for all the statistics. So what we're going to have as an output is going to be a structured recipe object with the title, ingredients, instructions, and counts. Next, we have the smart shopping list generation. So this is going to take an input of the structured recipe data. And what it's going to do is clean up those ingredients for shopping. We start off by just removing the measurements. So for example, we would go from 3 tablespoons or 4 to 5 pounds to just the ingredient name. We're also going to strip parenthetical notes. So anything that says like about 4 to 5 pounds, for example, it'll just give us the clean text version of that. And then we're also going to be taking the main ingredient that comes before commas. So garlic cloves, comma, minced. We're just going to take garlic cloves in that case. And then the output we're going to have is going to be a nice, clean shopping list with just the essential items to buy. So now we're doing some more extraction, but for the cooking parameters. This extract cooking temps and times function is going to also take in that raw markdown text as input. And the way it's going to work is that it's first going to find the temperatures using complex regular expressions to match LaTeX math notation. And then finally, we're going to extract the cooking times using pattern matching. So 1 hour, 15 minutes, or like 10 to 15 minutes. The output we're going to receive is going to be the appropriate cooking parameters for our recipe. And I believe that closes us out. Nope, almost. We also generate a summary of everything that's been extracted. Again, this is just for demo purposes. And so I think from here, I'm ready to give this a try so you can see how this looks. Coming back to this demo that we have here, I'm going to go ahead and run this one. All right, we have some really clear, clean instructions here. And we can see the steps that have occurred, but down below, I get my shopping list. So this is really awesome because I can now head over to the grocery store. I know exactly what I need in order to fulfill the requirements for creating this herb roasted chicken. In addition to that shopping list, I also have our detailed ingredients and our cooking steps as well. I did put together a UI experience version of this that you can also try because I've included this code within the repo for inside Azure AI Foundry. I created this with Streamlit, and so let's give this a try. And this is what it looks like. I'll take you around what's happening in here. So over on the left-hand side, I have information that displays what this demo does, and then also instructions around the demo flow. If you do want to come back and watch this video, it is also linked here, as well as a code, and then how you can join our Discord. But here in the middle is where you can give this a try. This is an alternative to doing things via the terminal. So instead, what you can do is upload a file, and then you can do the whole processing here. So I'm going to upload that herb roasted chicken recipe and give it a try. Okay, so I'm ready to process. So I'll click process recipe with AI, and we can see the steps that it's taking to do this processing. Right now we're at step 2, and step 3 has been completed. And so let's look at the results. Look how beautiful that is. We have the shopping list itself. We also have the cooking parameters. I can download this shopping list if I want it. And I also get the instructions as well. And then just in case I wanted to look at that raw extracted content, it's also included here in the UI version of this experience. And that's also downloadable. You can give this a try now if you'd like. All you need to do is just fork this repo and pass in your own API key and run the app. And you have a really great starting point to building your next big thing. I also wanted to experiment with a handwritten recipe. So let's see how that works. So as a reminder, back on the model deployment page, you can use sample code that we have for a base64 image. A key difference is going to be instead of getting the document URL, we're going to be using the image URL instead. I've now uploaded my macaroni and cheese recipe, and this is what it looks like. I did it as a picture. And with it added to my project folder, I'm just going to change the name here for the image to macaroni and cheese and save that. And then from here, I'm just going to clear the terminal, and let's give this a try and see if it works. All right, it seems like it's done a decent job extracting this. I do get the ingredients, and while it's showing 214 pounds of macaroni noodles and then some salt, we can probably modify some of the way that this form has, or this recipe has been written, but I will definitely say it's a really decent start. I'm now going to try that shopping list one to see if we can get a shopping list from this. Oh my goodness, y'all. So not only do we have the ingredients, which again, the 214 pounds of macaroni noodles is a little bit of a lot, but it's based on how the document was formatted. But we do also have the cooking steps in here as well. But the good news is that we do have a shopping list, or at least the start of something. And that's the beauty of working with projects like these, is that we can iterate over these things that we're building. That wraps up this episode of Inside Azure AI Foundry. Explore Mistral Document AI right now in Azure AI Foundry and see how it handles text, visuals, and multiple languages. I'll be back soon with another episode exploring the latest drops in Azure AI Foundry, but until then, join me in the Azure AI Foundry Discord. Let me know if you have any feedback or questions. Plus, it's always great to see what you're building. All right, I'll see you in the next episode.